Well, as you know, sir, the question they want me to ask you is the whole behavior of the provincial government with regards to COVID and dialing everything back. You said, sir, that you thought it was insanity. Clarify that term by insanity. Like, how concerned are you about all of this?
Yeah, I'm very worried. The latest announcement by the provincial government was done without any consultation with municipalities. And it's not like the old arguments that we were having about should you wear masks or not. This stuff goes further than any jurisdiction on earth, I think, which is we're not going to be testing for COVID anymore. We're going to pretend it doesn't exist. And we're going to allow fully infected people who have already tested positive to not isolate. So you could go to a football game or a restaurant or a movie, and the person sitting next to you could be knowingly positive. And even as a fully vaccinated person, that makes me nervous because it means that we're blinding ourselves to the actual size of the outbreak. And yes, people who are vaccinated probably won't get very sick, but some will. Children under 12 can't be vaccinated, so they could be sick. And this kind of situation where you allow outbreaks to persist is how you get mutations and variations. So to me, I can't imagine why the provincial government doesn't just want the information, even if they're not going to do anything with it, other than to say they just want to pretend that COVID doesn't exist and not get in trouble if there's a fourth wave. And that is not a good way to make public health decisions.
Sir, what will City Council of Calgary do if the numbers really start to explode?
If they really explode, I will call City Council back from their summer break and we will discuss reinstating the masking bylaw. Right now, there's no need to do that. Right now, this is something happening on a different scale. However, the city, I will remind everyone that masking in city facilities and vehicles, including transit, is still required right now. And it may or may not continue to be required on transit after August 16th. That is a decision for our city manager to make.
And last question for you, before let Scott jump in here. Sir, the provincial government decision is being mocked nationally, internationally. Your thoughts on that, and is this something that the Premier can overcome?
Well, you know, ultimately, we shouldn't talk politics at all when we're talking about public health. But there is reputational issues. You know, I'm out there virtually these days, but I'm out there busting my butt all the time, trying to get people to invest in Calgary, trying to get people to move to Calgary. And I'm increasingly hearing, especially from young people, that's a weird place, Alberta. I don't think I want to live in a place that's so backwards. And that's something the Premier has to take seriously.
Just to pick up on that, sir, why do you think the government of Alberta is going this direction? What's the motivation?
I've given up trying to figure out the motivations of this government. Picking fights over pickup trucks at a time when you're in the middle of a public health pandemic, probably not what I would have done.
Okay. Could you, for people who rely on Calgary Transit to get around, can you just provide a bit more color there in terms of after August 16th, the provincial rule disappears. So what's the process?
Yeah, so ultimately, although the province put in that rule on transit, they don't run transit. And so the city will ultimately make a decision on whether we continue masking on transit. We always had masking on transit long before there was a provincial rule. And so ultimately, we'll do that based on the best data we've got. At least we're still testing until August 16th. So we will have a sense of where we are on August 16th. But we have a duty of care to the people who come on Calgary Transit, who are our customers. And we're going to make sure that they stay safe and that people feel comfortable taking transit.
I do wonder, though, what happens after that? You don't have data to rely on to know whether it's mask or not mask as a delegated authority to the city manager.
Now you understand why I'm so frustrated. Because if the data disappears, then it's going to be very hard for us to make the decisions, and we'll have to decide whether we err on the side of caution or we take risks.
One other topic for you, sir, and that was the conversation you had earlier this afternoon on the council orientation, because of course there will be a large number of new members of council after the election. How does this orientation program look compared to the one that was utilized after the last election?
Well, you know, when I was first elected in 2010, I was the first new mayor who had not previously served as a member of council in 30 years. And frankly, the orientation process was a bit wanting. And so I've been working in the two elections since then, I'm an educator after all, to try and help improve the orientation process. And this year it will be even more robust. There's a lot more of it. In fact, the biggest challenge I've got is we have to give the new council members some time off to see their families. They've just gone through a terribly draining campaign before we throw them in the deep end. But at the same time, we just want to make sure that, particularly given that a majority of the council will be new, that people really know what they're doing, or as best as we can before they get started.
I see in the agenda item there, like 8 weeks
Yeah.
of sessions.
And I'm coming back for some of them.
I was going to say, what's your involvement in 8 weeks of?
Well, I unilaterally added myself to the council orientation committee. I don't know if they loved that I did. And the week between the election and when I'm done, I'm going to spend quite a bit of time with the new members of council, obviously a ton of time with the new mayor, doing all the best I can to manage that transition. And then I actually get to come back a week or so later to help them with their first mock council meeting prior to their first giant public hearing.
Are you easing back into Professor Nenshi?
Oh my gosh, it is where I am comfortable.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
Your
you.
Worship.